Okay, welcome everybody.
Welcome.
Another exciting week. So
Yeah.
we're learning Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the abridged code of Jewish law, and we are chapter 91. Chapter 91. Okay, so we'll give a brief introduction before we begin. So it's the din sheyesh lo mechush v'choyle she'ein bo sakana. Now these are the laws if someone is feeling slightly ill, and of course there's no danger. So just to reiterate, if there's a danger to life, God forbid, so Shabbos doesn't apply. Not only doesn't apply, but there's a mitzvah. It actually is a mitzvah to overrule Shabbos. So we've told the story before, which, as we say, for obvious reasons, for those who haven't heard it, we certainly sincerely hope it's not a true story, but it shows the point. There was a man who was in a shul on Shabbos, and God forbid, we should never know from such things, but someone was having a heart attack. So he was about to call the ambulance, and then he realized, this is the first time in his life he gets to do the mitzvah of breaking Shabbos. Till now, he always had the mitzvah to keep Shabbos. Now he has the first time to have the mitzvah to break Shabbos. So since it was the very first time, he felt he had to prepare himself properly. So he went to the mikveh, and then he came back and he put on his gartel. He said the entire book of Tehillim, the entire book of Psalms for 2 hours. And then he called, right? So, as we said, hopefully it's not a true story, because in this case, every second is vital. But in concept, that's how it would be. In other words, it's not only you're allowed to break Shabbos in an overruling, in a life-threatening situation. Shabbos doesn't even apply. The mitzvah now is to go do whatever you need to do to save a life. So we're not discussing that situation here. We're not even discussing a serious illness. We'll leave all of that aside. We'll get to that, God willing. Hopefully it'll stay theoretical, but here we're discussing someone, he's slightly ill. They've got a headache, a bit of a cold. It's nothing serious. So in this situation, we generally don't take medicine when it's not a serious situation. The reason there's a rabbinical decree not to take medicines, and the concern is that someone will come to grind, right? People used to prepare the medications themselves, and they would grind the various ingredients to make the medicine. And because grinding is one of the 39 malachas, one of the 39 creative techniques that we can't do on Shabbos, that was used to build the Mishkan, the tabernacle in the wilderness. So it's one of the things we can't do. So out of this concern, we don't take medicines for only slight discomfort. Now, we're going to have exceptions to this, right? That's why we have a whole chapter. If it was just what I told you, it could be one sentence. We don't take medicine. So we have a chapter. So there are exceptions. There are times that we can and things that we can take. But we'll start off with the premise that unless it fits into a certain situation, we don't take it. So with that, we shall begin. Aleph, number 1. Person, they have a slight illness. Actually, just before we go further, just another part to introduction that we should say is that we'll use diabetes as an example, but it could be a lot of things. A person who has it currently under control, they're taking their injections when they should, their blood sugar levels are good. So at the moment, they don't feel ill at all, right? Now, they obviously can still do whatever they need to do, because if they don't take the insulin, then God forbid, and well, it depends on the person and the situation, 3 hours, 5 hours, half a day, whatever it happens to be, they're going to be in a serious situation, God forbid. So you don't have to wait until someone is in a serious situation. So the same thing might be if they're feeling, that just a little bit off. We don't say that they're someone who's only here when we say someone's a little bit off, they're not seriously ill. Someone has a slight headache, a bit of a runny nose. It's nothing more than that. But if someone has a more serious underlying condition, and even though at the moment it's only slight discomfort, if it's something that can lead to, let's say, a life-threatening or more serious situation, we already look at it that way. We already consider it the serious case. Right? So this chapter is really, it's just the basic, you're not feeling 100%. Robert, yes.
Yes, I mean, the rule of thumb, let's say, is that if it's transient inconvenience, that's one thing, versus it being a chronic illness. Can we say that is the rule of thumb?
Yes, or, yeah, that's probably a pretty good way to put it.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be, and it can be a short-term serious illness, let's say.
Let's say the flu. You get the flu, you feel miserable.
That's right.
But it's not fatal.
But it's not pneumonia.
Right.
Right, that's, or anything else, God forbid.
Well, let's say, what happens if you get hit with poison ivy? Okay. How do we then gauge that as, what are you laughing at, Isaac? I'm just asking a question.
Oh, flying poison ivy? I mean, you fell into it, you touched it.
Whatever it is.
Well, whatever it is, okay? Or you get bitten by something inadvertently, okay?
So I think that depends what you got bitten by is going to make a difference, and then there are some things, let's say a bee sting. Bee sting for most people is a slight discomfort. Some people, God forbid, there can be allergic reactions, or even, some very serious allergic reactions, that they need to get injected with something otherwise they can't breathe. That's right. So, it's all going to depend on the situation. So we'll learn the chapter. We're going to speak about minor discomfort, major discomfort. We're going to we'll get there. So Aleph, number one, Mishyesh lemichush ba'alma. Have a slight something. V'mischazik v'holik k'moi bori, and slight meaning that if you're going to put a little bit of effort, or with effort, you can act and carry on as if you were healthy. Right? So a person can't do that with pneumonia, generally. But someone has a bit of a head cold, slight ear infection, something like that. Again, we're not talking about a serious case. With a little extra effort, they can carry on as normal, totally. So in that situation, also they're not allowed to take any medicine or do actions that are, medical treatment. Okay, again, as I said, in the next few paragraphs, we're going to have exceptions. So we'll get there. But the general rule of thumb is, even a medical treatment that there's no malacha. In other words, it doesn't break Shabbos in of itself. It's a rabbinical decree in a low-level case. We don't take. But fil lasich b'shemen. Now, even to apply oil, And again, this is more is going to depend more on the time and place, because one of the exceptions we're going to say, if there's something that healthy people also do, so we'll give an example. Healthy people also take vitamins. You know, it's not only people who are unwell and have a deficiency to take vitamins. Plenty of healthy people take vitamins. So therefore, taking vitamins, even if it's because the person has deficiencies and has some problem because of the deficiency, they're allowed to take the vitamins because it's not specifically a medical treatment, something that healthy people do as well. So when it comes to rubbing oil or creams on a person, it's going to depend on the time and place. You know, there are many cultures that you know, people put oil on every day, or moisturizers and different things. And in Hungary, 200 years ago, they did it. So therefore, he says you can't put on the oil. You can't take the treatments yourself, can't do it yourself. It can't be another person can't give you the treatment, and not even a non-Jew. So that's the basic premise. And as I said, we're going to have some exceptions in the next few paragraphs. So again, just to sum it up, we have a concern that if a person is going to start taking medications, they're going to prepare the medication, they're going to grind it, they're going to, whatever they do, you know, even a Tylenol, some people can't swallow pills well, and they crush it up, you know, which is a problem on Shabbos. So out of that concern, there's a rabbinic decree made that someone who is not really sick, it's a very slight thing, like just a cold, a slight headache, nothing serious, then that person can't take any medicine or undergo any medical treatments. Okay. Thanks. Number 2. Kol acholim or mashkim shem machal borim. Any food or drink that a healthy person also eats or drinks. You can eat or drink them even for medical reasons. So again, I gave the example of vitamins, but there might be other things. You know, there might be certain I don't know, drinks that maybe you know, there are some people who have it for health. I can't think of one offhand, but you know, it's not something that perhaps tastes that great. Yeah, someone gave a suggestion today? No. So you know, since other people have it, you can have it too. Even though they can have some of it, they can have some side effects, and therefore it's obvious that a person is taking it for medicine, right? So again, let's use the example of vitamins. Many people, healthy people, take vitamins, but in this case, it's obvious that this person is only taking vitamins because they have a certain issue. Nevertheless, it's still permissible since it's something that's not uniquely a medical treatment. Okay. Anything that healthy people don't normally eat or drink. You're not allowed to eat or drink as a medical treatment. A person can take like herbal drinks or swallow raw eggs, you know, for their voice. If they're the chazan, right? So some people, you know, drink all kinds of things to keep their throat in good shape.
They gargle.
Yeah, well, yeah, there are people who drink raw eggs, and you know, and seen chazanim do that. Now they can do this because there's no medical issue here. They don't have a throat problem. They're just having it to make their voice sound sweeter. So therefore they're allowed to, even though normally people don't have that. Okay, so that's exception. All right, so we've got 2 exceptions so far. Exception number 1 is anything that people normally eat or drink. Or let's say everyone normally, but healthy people do have. So you can use as a medicine as well. Exception number 2 is even if it's something that people normally only have for a medicine, but you're not taking it for medicine reasons. You're taking it for a different reason, to make your voice sound nice or something. Then you're allowed to have it as well. Okay. All right. So unless there's any questions, comments, we'll keep going. At any time, anyone has any, not sure, I didn't explain something clearly, please don't hesitate to ask. Okay, Gimel, number 3. Chayshish b'shinov. Someone has a toothache. The michish ba'alma, but it's a slight one. So we're not talking about someone has some major cyst or, a terrible something, God forbid, we should never know from these things.
Rabbi.
But a slight, discomfort.
Rabbi,
Yes.
Susan was going to ask a question.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Okay. If somebody takes liquid iron because they can't take the pills and they have a chronic condition, when they don't take that iron, that liquid iron, they can barely, function. So that's not allowed or allowed?
We'll say allowed for 2 reasons. Number 1 is that if it's a chronic condition, that's not what we're speaking about here. We're just speaking about minor.
Okay.
That's number 1. But number 2, there are many people who take iron and other vitamins and minerals just as like a maintenance, so to keep healthy. So it's something that people also take who are healthy. So therefore someone else can take it if they're not so healthy.
All right. Thank you. I'm sorry to...
It's okay, not at all. So someone has a toothache, but there's the ein lo tzar gadol. It's not particularly painful. It's not very painful. So lo yigma behem chaymetz shamashkil refuah. You can't gargle, or vinegar or other liquids, a mouthwash type thing. Well, mouthwash you can, because healthy people use that. But medicated mouthwash.
Salt water is usually they do salt water. For
okay. So something like that, for and then spit it out. You can't do that because healthy people don't do that. Ella megama bolaya, but you can sort of gargle it and sort of move it around your mouth if you swallow it, because then you're eating. I don't know how much vinegar you could swallow, but in concept, have as much as you like, as long as you swallow it. Or you can dunk bread in it. You dip something into it, into the vinegar, and then eat that bread as usual, and that'll cause the vinegar to go around your mouth. Likewise, someone has a sore throat. So they can't gargle with the liquid for their sore throat, but they can swallow it. And if it happens through drinking, it's swallowing through drinking this whatever they're going to have for their sore throat, if they get healed, so they get healed, right? Because eating, normal way of eating or drinking, is not specific to the medications. Okay. Number 4, Daled. Someone has stomach pains. Or someone has a rash on their scalp. Now, the Medinas Elu, in our countries, he says, so he's speaking about Eastern Europe. Since we don't normally rub oil or something, unless it's for health, also Shabbos, so we can't put the oils on Shabbos. I would say that today, I think particularly, with dry skin, different things, it's very normal. Some people put on moisturizers every day on their skin, particularly some of the ladies and different things. And so today in America, I don't think it's such a problem to put the oils. So if it's going to help someone's stomach or if they have a bit of a rash or something, I think it's a normal thing for people to put creams on nowadays. But if you're in a place where it's not the norm, you can't, because it's obvious that a person is doing it as a medical procedure. Now, again, there's a rash and there's a rash, right? If someone, God forbid, gets a burn and there's a problem on the skin, we treat it. We're not, or there's very serious skin irritations and rashes. Someone asked about the poison ivy before. Thank God from Australia, I really don't have any first-hand experience of poison ivy, so I don't know really what it does. We just sort of heard bits and pieces. But if something was very nasty and a person would be in a tremendous amount of pain, then they would be able to put something on. Here we're talking about a slight discomfort. It's just not that comfortable. So you can wait. You wait a few hours. There's not going to be suffering. If there's going to be suffering, then it's a different situation. Okay. Hey, number 5. Hageneach because leiv. Right, someone has angina, they have some type of heart condition. So so if the treatment was that you would suck milk directly from a goat, I'm sure we have better treatments today. But whatever it happens to be, that if that's the treatment, so mutter loylinoik b'Shabbos, this person is allowed to drink the milk directly from the goats on Shabbos. I can't say I'd be particularly keen to drink milk directly, even when it's not Shabbos, but this person can. I'll be with you in 1 second. We'll just finish the chapter. Why? Because the reason he's allowed, there's 2 factors. Number 1 is he's removing the milk in an unusual way. The usual method of taking milk from an animal is not directly into your mouth. You normally milk it to some type of vessel. So he's doing it in an unusual way. And also because this person has tremendous pain. And the loy goes rabbanon, and in a case of tremendous pain, this decree was never made. Whenever there's going to be, I've translated sar as pain, maybe suffering might be a better word. So whatever it is, in other words, anything, we're only talking about minor issues, anything that's person is going to be in pain or some other type of suffering, this decree that we can't take the medicine was never made. Okay, David, yes, you had a question before.
I have the translation by Rabbi Talger.
Yep.
He says a person who groans from heartburn. So he doesn't really translate it as a cardiac condition, more a digestive condition. He says it's heartburn.
Maybe it's that as well, So instead of drinking milk directly from a goat, we take Tums.
They're both calcium to dull the acid.
Yeah, it makes sense, I guess. Or maybe it's that also, but it means like a pain in the heart. That's what the Hebrew words mean. So, I mean, maybe, a heartburn, a person feels the pain there. Maybe that is what it means.
Could be either. It could be either.
Yeah,
or-
it could be either.
or, You know, I'm thinking, I mean, I don't speak Hebrew, so I'm like, you know, in the dark. So that's why, but maybe it's one or the other. Maybe it's the inference.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine it's pain in that area, but at the end of the day, though, it's an example. So what we're saying is two things: that if we're going to do something like that, that's in an unusual manner, we're lenient. And if a person is going to have great sar, you know, that we'll loosely say pain in this case, you know, will discomfort, then the decree was never made. So whatever any other circumstance that could apply to, that would be the law. Okay, Vav, number 6. Person has a stomach ache, the type of stomach ache that if you put like a heat pack or something, it's going to relieve the stomach ache. You can take a cup, put hot water in the cup, or today with hot water bottles, you know, the same type of thing, and put that, he's saying that you take the cup, put hot water in it, you drink or pour out the hot water, whatever happens to be, and the cup is still hot. And you put that on the stomach. Now, now, even if there's still like some steam, a little bit of steam coming out of the cup, you're still allowed to. So sick people, well, let's say healthy people generally don't put cups of hot water. Now, it could be, we would say today people do, you know, in winter, some people like to have a hot water bottle under the blanket in winter in certain places. We don't really need it in winter in Phoenix, but I'm sure where some people live, it's handy. So so a hot water bottle we have today maybe is probably considered something that healthy people use as well. So it's not a problem. But but putting a cup of hot water on the stomach pain, that was something only sick people do. But if we pour out the water and we're just resting the cup on ourselves while it's still hot, then that's not a problem. Similarly, a person can warm up clothes and put them on the abdomen. Now that doesn't mean we, you know, we don't start boiling clothes in the, you know, on a pot over the fire, you know. So you know, we can't cook on Shabbos and various things, but put it near the heater, whatever happens to be, and make it, you know, make them a little toasty, and then if that can relieve the stomach cramps, then that's fine. Okay. Zion, number 7. Someone injures their hand or foot. So we're not talking about a break at this stage, right? You know, again, Hashem should bless us. We should never know from such things. But a break, you know, if not treated, can cripple the limb, God forbid. And as we've learned before, life-threatening situation doesn't only mean life-threatening to the whole body. In other words, the person actually live or dying. But life-threatening situation that overall Shabbos is even the life of a limb. So, you know, you could theoretically say, you know, a person's hand's going to get crushed, and well, you know, God forbid, but they're not going to die, so it's not life-threatening. We say no, we consider that a life-threatening situation, because even though the life per se is not at risk, but the life of a limb is also considered. So here we're not talking about you know, someone didn't break their arm. You know, they've got a little cut, or they've got a sprain. You know, it's a little, again, it's in
What
this.
about a cut? Nikva doesn't include a cut?
Well, it depends what type of cut. You know, there's a cut, there's a cut. I mean, God forbid, there's cuts that people can bleed out from, right? And there's, you know, someone got a paper cut.
Bleeding, right.
Yeah, someone got a paper cut, it's a little discomfort, but there's really, at the end of the day, there's nothing serious here. And there's everything in between. And obviously, as we keep saying, err on the side of caution, it's etc. So someone's hurt their hand or foot, but it's not a serious injury. It's this category we're speaking about now. It's discomfort. And if they push themselves, they could carry on like a healthy person. But it's a little uncomfortable. So what are they allowed to do? They can soak it in wine. That apparently stops the bleeding. I haven't tried that myself. Putting a cut in wine. I think it'd be more comforting just to drink the wine. We leave that aside. So we can do that. But not in vinegar. Because the vinegar is more potent, it's stronger, and therefore he's obviously doing it for medicinal purposes.
Rabbi, the wine has the alcohol that can kill the germs.
Yeah, so maybe that's why they did it
I think you should test the theory. You do 1 cup, you dip, then another cup you drink, then 1 cup you dip, and 1 cup you drink, and you see which one worked better for you.
Sounds all for medicinal purposes, of course. Now, the imhum oimik. Now, if he's a delicate person, then af hayayin like mechometz v'asa. Then even the wine for him is the same. Is going to have the same effect as the vinegar, and he shouldn't use it. V'imhu al gava yad gava regel. Now, if it's the wound is on the back of the hand or the back of the foot. Basil, or was caused by a metal object. Now you're allowed to use any remedy, as it says, we're going to say later on, and that's because the later on again we're worried about a more serious wound. So metal, I guess, if we don't clean it out, people get tetanus, whatever it happens to be. But if
They're
it's
talking about a knife, is that what they're talking about?
Well, any metal. It's just said the wound is by metal objects. So it could have been and again, a knife. If it's your own knife, God forbid, in the kitchen, you can have a little cut and a more serious cut. But I think it means it's speaking about, let's say, outside. Person got injured, let's say, on a metal hook, or they stepped on a nail, something, God forbid. So now we say you can clean it out with whatever you need to clean it out, whatever you need, because God forbid it could become something more serious. So it says, as we're going to say in chapter 92, and chapter 2 is going to start speaking about critically ill. Yes, David.
So the metal object doesn't have to be necessarily the cause of the wound on the back of the hand. It could be a wound from some other thing, right?
Anywhere
Correct.
else.
So either the back of the hand or the foot were more concerned, because the front, where you step, you get a little scratch in your toe, you little scratch. The back is more of an injury. So correct. So it's either the back or the wound is by a metal object. Yeah, it's either one of those. Susan, was your hand up? No. Okay. Ches, number 8. A person has a slight pain in their eyes. A person should not apply saliva, undiluted saliva, right? Now, probably not the most hygienic, but pre-antibiotics and various things, I mean, there are sort of some healing properties in saliva. But nowadays, we don't recommend it. Not that it has to do with Shabbos. The person wasn't even Jewish or anything like that, but an Australian boxer. And I must say that I'm not a big fan of boxing, and that I don't think people should get paid $1 million to beat each other, you know, and that all these other people pay who knows how much to go watch two people beat each other up. You know, I think there's perhaps a little more refined ways to spend one's leisure time. But anyway, the Australian boxer,
You could shoot each other, but it's over too quickly.
I guess so. That's right. So his contact lens fell on the floor. So he cleaned it with his spit, and he put it back in. And anyway, he got an eye infection, and because of that, he couldn't go for a world title. So undiluted saliva, don't use that on Shabbos or perhaps any other time, right? Now, this is obviously using it as a medicinal procedure, right? So a medicine in the past was undiluted saliva, which meant was collected before anything was eaten that day. That if someone can't open their eyes, they're allowed to moisten their eyes with undiluted saliva. This is not a medicinal procedure. This is just to be to open their eyes. Now today, Baruch Hashem, thank God we have water with the faucet. You know, there's a lot of other things, a lot of other ways we can treat things, but the underlying concept, which will apply to anything that we do. So if a person just has a slight eye discomfort, they can't apply something that's obviously a medicine, whether that's drops or whatever happens to be. But if it's closed, you know, there's a little bit of, it's not really pus, but you know, that comes out of the eye, and various things, sometimes the eye is a little bit closed, then a person could wash it, could do something, because that's not a medicinal procedure. It's just in order to be able to open the eye. So sometimes even when we look at the things that people did in the past, it's not the action per se that makes the big difference. It's the reason behind it, and we apply that reason to whatever methods we use today. Okay. Oh, someone else is joining. Okay, test number 9. Someone is suffering because they overate. They overate to the point where they're in tremendous pain. They're allowed to put their finger in their throat in order to bring up what they ate. Now, well, obviously, if someone's doing this on a regular basis, that's a separate issue, and you know, they need to see someone to help them with that. We're talking about it's like a one-off type thing. You know, this person is the kiddush was just too good at shul, and then they came home, and you should see what their wife cooked, and they didn't have any self-control. So,
yep, the old Roman method.
Yeah, when I was a yeshiva student many years ago, so there was a blood drive, and so all the students in the yeshiva, we went in our lunch break to donate blood. And, you know, I don't want to disparage yeshiva food or by any means imply that it's not top quality. But let's just say we arrived there and they had all these lox bagels and custard donuts and all these things. And compared to what we'd been eating recently, it was a absolute treat. So I certainly made sure that I got well and truly my fair share. So then I gave blood, and they said, "Now go eat something." I said, "I ate already." They said, "No, you're meant to eat after you give blood. That's the whole point." I said, "All right." So anyway, I ate a bit more, and went back to my dormitory, and back to lie down. I had a stomach ache, and I missed the afternoon session. I wasn't feeling well. I'd overeaten. I was missed the afternoon session in the yeshiva. When I went back the next day, the person in charge says, "Where were you yesterday afternoon?" So I told them, "Oh, I gave blood and I wasn't feeling well afterwards." So they said, "Oh, okay." I mean, it was technically true. It was because I gave the blood, But so I guess worse than that, they had to use their finger. All right. Yud, number 10. Maka she'ein basakana. They have a wound and it's not critical, right? We're not talking about a wound where someone's going to bleed out or, God forbid, or there's a danger or even infection. It's a little cut, right? So I'm emphasizing that it's a little cut. I don't want people to get the wrong message and, God forbid, something serious happens and they think they can't treat it, right? We're talking about this a little cut. You can't dress it, can't put a bandage or things, even if it was prepared the day before. And you can't do anything that's a medicinal thing to do. So a person can wash out the wound, because healthy people wash their hands too. I mean, the wound's not necessarily on the hand, but whatever. Healthy people wash as well. You can't even put a leaf for an old dry rag. That also helps heal by putting something on. But you can put something onto to protect it. That shouldn't get scratched. So something like a Band-Aid, sometimes there's a person's got a little bit of a cut, and if they're going to bump it on something, it's going to come open, or there's a bit of loose skin and it can get pulled back, So all these things you can put on a Band-Aid. If the Band-Aid is to protect it as opposed to healing it, then you can put something on. Now, this person had a bandage on it from yesterday. In other words, the wound was before Shabbos, and they already had something on. So Megala Ketsasa, he can open one end and clean the wound. And then you tie that bit of the bandage back up, and then you open the other end and clean that bit. In other words, so the bandage never comes off entirely. You do it bit by bit. So as long as we're leaving someone, or a tia atzmoli loy yikaneach, and we don't clean the bandage itself, even though shemamarach, we don't wipe the bandage itself, because that would be like smoothing, right? Which is one of the things they did on the leather. They built the Mishkan, so we can't do that. So that you can do. So we can open the dressing piece by piece, as long as we leave some of it on all the time, but we don't put the ointments or the antiseptic directly on the bandage. It has to be on the wound. Okay, so that's if we left it on. However, naflaratim al gabi maka, al gabi karka, the bandaging, it fell on the floor. So it's totally off. Lo yachzreni, you can't return it. Can't put it back. Now, again, I'm emphasizing this is when it's not serious, right? If a person's, just had a triple, who knows what surgery, and they need their dressing on, prevent infection or whatever it is, and then they need it. We're talking about something, a cut. Yes, Susan, yes.
In the case of children,
Yeah,
when children get hurt on Shabbos,
yes.
I mean, isn't it considered, don't you do whatever you're supposed to do? If
So-
you have to break Shabbos to assist, in other words, if they get a terrible cut and they're bleeding
Yeah,
horrible.
so again, it's going to depend what happens, right? So you are correct that we are more lenient with children because children can injure more, or they're more susceptible
It's
to,
more
to certain
traumatic for
things.
them. It's more
That's right.
traumatic. Right.
How again, it depends. If we're talking about a little scratch that had 3.5 drops of blood, well, you put on the Band-Aid and kiss their boo-boo, and and we move on. That's it. It all depends. And again, as we keep saying, err on the side of caution. That's the halacha, err on the side of caution. And sometimes there is a greater concern with children, most definitely. It's something. See, the other thing is like this. Often, when you have to make the call about what to do, you're making it in 2.5 seconds. You don't have the opportunity to sit down and sit for half an hour and really think about it, because often these things, if it needs to be dealt with, it needs to be dealt with now. And sometimes it'll happen. You'll make a decision in the spur of the moment, the best decision you could have made at that moment with the information that you had and the time frame that you have. But when you sit down later and mull over it again in your mind, you might realize that perhaps you didn't make the right decision. Now, a person should not beat themselves up about that. Err on the side of caution. And if it comes out they're a little bit lenient, so be it. Use it as a learning experience for the future, how to judge, but don't use it to beat yourself up about, because a person can only do the best they can do at the moment. It's there's a famous story. The Boston Rebbe, bless the memory, he was an expert on Jewish medical ethics, and he was on a committee, I believe a national committee that looked at different things. Is it, and gave recommendations to a government. Is it ethical to do these different things? And he was speaking at a conference, and I don't remember the exact term that he used, but he essentially called some surgeons bloodshedders. In other words, it was advancements of their career. Therefore, trying anything experimental was more important to them, to some people, obviously not everyone, than the patient's safety. And one of the very high-ranking surgeon professors came up to him afterwards, and he asked him, do you really think we're bloodshedders? So he said, essentially what I just said now, that's what made me think of it. If a person made the best choice they could with the knowledge that they have available at the time, and the time frame they have to make the choice, then even if it didn't work out and you think about it afterwards and you realize that it wasn't the right decision, you can only use that as a learning experience. You can't feel bad about it. The problem is when people don't use it as a learning experience, that's when it becomes an issue. Ben, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to say, I think you talked before about something getting stuck in your throat. They have today special plunger. It's like for medical purposes, that you can plunge things out from the patient's throat or from the person's throat.
Right.
It's a plunger that when you push down, it doesn't push any air. So it's not going to hurt the patient. But when you pull it up at once, it'll pull out stuff from your throat.
Okay. So
sometimes you have to repeat it more than once if it's deep enough or tight enough. But it's made to plunge out food from the throat.
Okay. So before we were speaking more about a sore throat, but if someone's choking, then God forbid this is a life-threatening situation,
Right.
and then everything goes.
Yeah, but I wanted to say it so people know that something like that is available.
Okay. No, thank you for sharing. That's good, and it's sometimes having little things at home can make the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They have them in catering halls?
Sorry?
Nothing. I said, do they have them in catering halls?
Oh, don't know.
I don't know that they have them anywhere. You have to
Oh.
buy and have it with you. I saw a video where a person ran to his car and got it and saved a child that was choking in the restaurant.
Okay.
Mm.
Heimlich isn't enough anymore.
No,
No, it doesn't always work, Heinrich.
no. So if the bandage fell off onto the floor, you can't put it back. Al gabi kli yechzerena. But if it fell onto something else, onto the furniture, onto a plate, onto something, then you can put it back, because when it's on the floor, it's like totally off. It's finished. If it just dropped off a little bit, fell onto the chair next to you, you can quickly put it back. Okay, so that's if you had one from before Shabbos addressing. I will also learn the goy lasses with Tia Shabbos. We can't ask a non-Jew to put bandaging on Shabbos, addressing. Again, I'm emphasizing this when it's not serious. Because generally the type of dressings people put on, they used to put some type of ointment on the dressing and rub it in, and that's smoothing is actually a biblical prohibition, right? That's smoothing, and we're not allowed to ask a non-Jew to do something that's biblically prohibited. Again, unless it's a life-threatening or whatever happens to be. Unless it's a sickness that affects the entire body. It's something that affects the entire body, even if it's not life-threatening, but it's affecting the whole body, means it's a more serious situation, then we can ask a non-Jew. Okay. Number 11, Yud Aleph. Now you can't place a cloth on a bleeding wound. Now again, if a person has a serious wound and you need to put something on to stop the bleeding, because God forbid they're just bleeding too much, then you can do whatever you need to do because it's a life-threatening situation, either to the person or the limb. We're not speaking about that. We've got a little bit of a cut, and it helps if you put something on the even a little cut, even a paper cut, to stop the bleeding. You can't put an article of clothing or a cloth. Why? Because that's dyeing. You're dyeing the cloth. And how much more so, you can't use a red cloth, because you're improving its redness. Right? And again, I'm emphasizing this is not a serious cut. This is just a little minor cut. Now, today, where we have napkins or tissues, the disposable things, we can use them, because once something's on them, they're ruined. And as we explained before, a malacha, the action we can't do in Shabbos, is only for something positive. So when you soil, you ruin something, then that's destructive. So we could use a paper napkin, a tissue, but material we can't use. Yeah, Susan, you wanted to ask something?
Yeah, it actually says red cloth, it actually translates as a red cloth.
Yes, because once you dye it with your blood, you've improved the red.
That's amazing. That's really amazing.
Also, you can't squeeze a wound in order to get the blood out. right?
I would
So
take that.
causing a wound on Shabbos is
A snake bite. Suppose you get a snake bite.
well, again, we're talking about very minor things,
Okay.
right? We're talking about a minor cut. This might be example. Someone has a bit of a pimple or something, and they want to, they squeeze out some of the blood, and it heals better. I mean, not trying to be gross or something, but that type of thing. It's not serious. Snake bite, God forbid, one does whatever they need to do. Allocated ISIS. So what do you do? Right. So what do you do if you want to stop the blood? So right, that's mine. You rinse it in water or wine to remove the blood. And then you wrap it when there's no more blood on. There's no more blood that's already come out. Then you wrap the cloth around it. If blood then still comes out and goes on, it's not so much an issue. It's more the blood that's already on the finger or the hand or whatever happens to be that we're concerned about. Now, if the blood doesn't stop because of the bleeding, so you apply a spider web. Right? Again, I think today we'd say you'd use a gauze. I didn't have gauzes in those days. They used to use spider webs. So,
I hope they made sure the spider is not in it.
Well, I guess it depends what type of spider it is. That's it. Now, we'll point out to you a spider web is normally muktzah on Shabbos, but muktzah doesn't apply in for this situation. So, although we're laughing about it, really all this should do is help us to say, Baruch Hashem, thank God that we've progressed.
Don't have this.
Progressed a little bit since then, So, although they say spider web, I'm going to say use a gauze as an example, right? So, so you put that on to try and stop it. Then afterwards, you can put a cloth, wrap a cloth around. But again, today, we probably just put a Band-Aid or something, a little bit different. Now, some people are a little bit hesitant to use the spider webs because spider webs are curative. Spider webs are good medicine. Can't say I've ever tried it myself, but okay, sure, the guys, so if possible, I get a non-Jew to apply the spider web. Right, and in my mind, I'm seeing someone walking down the street and walking up to non-Jew say, "Excuse me, I've got this cut on my hand. Could you put some spider web on it for me?" They might call the padded wagon, anyway.
Are you really translating this? Are you just trying to make us have a good time? I need to know.
Yes, I'm
making
translating it. But again, look, maybe spider webs do have some, this
is incredible,
could be
really.
the good stuff. As I said, today we'd probably just use a gauze. Baruch Hashem, we don't use spider webs to stop bleeding anymore. You apply a gauze, and there's no problems.
Spider webs are used instead of silk. They're natural silk, and that's what they used for bandages.
Yep. We're having a laugh about it, but that was a common medicinal procedure. Yes.
Absolutely.
You're on mute, and you're on mute.
I am unmute. Okay. If you need to monitor your condition, and let's see, your blood pressure has to be measured every 2-3 hours, or you take an echo cardiogram or something that really is important to monitor at certain time, and it happened to be on Friday. What do you do in this situation?
So if it's something has to be like every 2-3 hours, it's probably a serious condition. So if it's something, let's say for an example, I'm going to start at one extreme and go to another extreme. Let's say sometimes you have certain athletes and they monitor different things, and they don't really need to. It's just to enhance their performance. So we're going to say you can't do that on Shabbos. If someone has, let's say that if someone's has to monitor their blood pressure with 2-3 hours, there's probably a very serious issue there. Now, in which case it's probably life-threatening, or something like that. In which case, not only they're allowed to, they have to. I gave the example at the beginning of the lesson, say a diabetic. So sometimes a diabetic, again, there's different levels. Some people have they're in a more minor situation. Some people very serious situation. There are some people who have to actually take a blood sugar level test several times a day. And that means they actually have to prick themselves, which normally you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. Squeeze out the blood, which we said you can't do on Shabbos. And sometimes the testing involves electrical machine. Sometimes it's just a swab and it changes the color or different things. But again, depending on the case. So if this is something that is necessary, because of their condition, then not only it's allowed, you have to. There are people, although, if we talk about Yom Kippur as an example, Yom Kippur, we have to fast. There are some people, due to their health situation, not only they don't have to fast, they're not allowed to fast. They have to eat. Using a diabetic as an example, they have to eat. If they go 26 hours without eating, they can fall into a coma, God forbid. So every case is going to be judged on its own merits. So I don't want to give a blanket answer. But if the case genuinely warrants that a person has to do that, then that's what they have to do. So again, this chapter is talking about minor conditions.
I used to train clients in how to answer questions in court as a witness or at a deposition or whatever. And the basic rule was you have to tell the truth and the whole truth. I used to say, make believe you're eating on Yom Kippur. Every word that comes out of your mouth, you're allowed to eat, but not more. Because you're ill, you can eat something, doesn't mean you sit down and have an ice cream sundae and cheesecake and everything else. You eat as much as you need to take care of the medical condition. I said the same with your words. Make believe every word out of your mouth. You got to tell the truth and the whole truth, but then stop. Don't offer things. Don't keep talking. That was the rule. Talk like you're eating on Yom Kippur.
It's a good way to put it, Robert. Yes.
Yeah, the other question, if not now, maybe later, is to deal with what about a physician and what he or she can or cannot do? But the other thing I never considered, what about Hatzalah? And is there a handbook for them to be able to deal with an emergency without knowing that it's life-threatening?
Yeah.
Yes.
So there is a handbook. They actually have a handbook. They have a training course and various things. But at Solar, generally, if someone's calling, look, you'll always have someone who calls it Solar for a nothing. It's just one of those things. But generally speaking, if someone's calling it Solar on Shabbos, there's a concern. In which case they do what they need to do. And at Solar has extra leniency. Let's say, for example, they rush someone to hospital. They're allowed to bring the car back to their area in the middle of the community in case there's another call, which a regular person, if they had to, if I just had to take someone to hospital on Shabbos, I can't come back. I have to wait there till after Shabbos because, the life-threatening situation allowed me to take them. But once I'm there, no one's life's at risk. It may not be fun sitting in the waiting room for 10 hours, but, you can do it. It's not the end of the world. But the soul is even allowed to come back. So they're ready for the next call. So there's lots of, here we go. Here's the solar book.
Oh,
What are
wait,
you
it's
holding
back.
up? I can't, what is
Back.
it? Hold
I'm
it up.
sorry.
Hold it up
Madrich
again.
Lechevra Hatzalah, it's called.
It's the
Madrich means
Madrich
a guide.
Lechevra Hatzalah. This is
Okay.
the handbook that everybody uses. And also, you have a Vad of Rabbanim for Hatzalah.
Yes.
If a problem comes up on site, they call the Rav on Shabbos. And the Rav has the phone and he knows it's Hatzalah and he picks up. And everybody behaves. And thank God, in the last 10 years, we've done over 13,000 successful calls, a lot of them on Shabbos. But
All right, so we've gone a little bit over time. It's okay. So any other questions? No, okay. Well, wish everyone a wonderful week. Just to let you know,
Thank you, Levi.
had a grandson this week.
Oh, Mazel Tov.
Mazel tov.
Wonderful, fantastic.
Bris
Healthy.
next week.
A healthy
Have
boy.
a good Shabbos.
Boy, have a wonderful Shabbos.
Thank you.
The
Thank
blessed
you.
week.
When's the
Thank
bris?
you.
Stay safe,
Yeah.
everybody.
Take care.
Thank you. Yeah, bye-bye.
Have a great Shabbos and Mazel Tov.
Thank
Mazel
you.
tov, Rabbi. Mazel tov.